1954, Harlem, New York. A young man in a tailored suit walks into a numbers operation on 125th Street. His name is Vincent Marshall. He's 26 years old, educated, ambitious, and he's about to discover something that will reshape how he understands power forever. But not yet. Right now, Vincent is confident. He has a plan. The plan is simple: he will operate in Bumpy Johnson's territory, but outside Bumpy's system. He will be faster, smarter, more efficient. He will prove that the old ways, the hierarchical, loyalty-based structure that Bumpy built, are obsolete. For 6 months, his plan works perfectly. Then Bumpy Johnson invites him to a meeting. And in that meeting, Vincent learns a lesson that destroys everything he built without a single threat being made, without a single dollar being taken, without Bumpy ever raising his voice. This is the story of how a student thought he became the teacher. And how he learned that the real master had been watching him the entire time. Vincent Marshall wasn't born in Harlem. He was born in Philadelphia, raised by a schoolteacher mother and a porter father who believed education was the key to everything. Vincent believed it too. He read constantly. Economics, business theory, efficiency models. He studied how systems worked and how they failed. By the time Vincent was 20, he understood something that most hustlers never grasp: crime isn't random. It's a system. And systems can be optimized. When Vincent arrived in Harlem in 1953, he didn't come as a criminal. He came as an analyst. He spent his first year observing. He watched Bumpy's operations, the Italian families, the smaller independent crews. He studied how money moved, where it got trapped, what created inefficiency. And he identified something crucial: Bumpy's organization, despite its power, was built on a foundation that was becoming increasingly fragile. That foundation was loyalty. Bumpy ran his operation like a family. He promoted from within. He rewarded loyalty with money and respect. He expected obedience in return. It worked because Harlem, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, valued those things. But Vincent saw something Bumpy didn't seem to recognize: the world was changing. Young people wanted meritocracy, not hierarchy. They wanted efficiency, not tradition. They wanted to be paid fairly, not depend on a patriarch's goodwill. Vincent saw an opening. He started small, in a corner of Harlem that Bumpy had allowed to run relatively loose, the area around 140th Street, toward the river, where operations were less dense and oversight was lighter. Vincent opened his own numbers operation with a simple value proposition: he paid his runners 15% of collections. Bumpy's standard was 10%. The runners came. Vincent's second innovation was organization. He used carbon paper and filing systems instead of ledgers. He tracked data more precisely. He knew exactly how much was flowing through each location, which runners were reliable, which customers were regular players. He could forecast demand. He could optimize routes. His operation ran like clockwork. The customers came. By month 3, Vincent was pulling roughly $8,000 a week in action. It wasn't huge money compared to Bumpy's operations, but it was significant. And it was growing. By month 6, Vincent had 40 runners working for him, 5 collection points, and a reputation as the young operator who ran the tightest ship in Harlem. People started talking about Vincent the way they used to talk about Bumpy when Bumpy was young. In barbershops and numbers joints, in restaurants and corner stores, the conversation was the same: there's a new voice in Harlem. There's a young man who understands the future. Vincent heard these conversations. They confirmed what he already believed: that intelligence, properly applied, could overcome any obstacle. That systems, if designed correctly, could outperform tradition. That the age of personality-driven leadership was ending and the age of data-driven management was beginning. He didn't realize he was wrong about almost everything. Bumpy Johnson didn't miss much. But what was interesting about Bumpy's response to Vincent's emergence was that he seemed to miss it entirely. There were no warnings. No messages. No subtle pressure. Nothing. Vincent interpreted this silence as one of three things: either Bumpy didn't care, Vincent's operation was too small to matter, or Bumpy was afraid, Vincent's efficiency was a threat Bumpy couldn't counter, or Bumpy respected him, Bumpy was letting a young man earn his space. Vincent preferred to believe the third explanation. It made him feel like he was part of a natural succession. Like Bumpy was old, wise, and generous enough to let the next generation rise. Like there was a hierarchy of merit in Harlem, and Vincent was climbing it by virtue of his talent. The truth was more complicated, but Vincent wouldn't understand that for several more months. What Vincent did do during those months was grow more aggressive. He expanded into a second territory, 110th to 120th Street, between Lenox and 7th. That was closer to Bumpy's core operations, but it was technically independent ground. The runners there switched to Vincent for the better pay and tighter management. Collections increased by 30% in the first month. Then Vincent made a crucial mistake. He started talking. Not carelessly. Not publicly in a way that would damage his reputation. But strategically. He began giving interviews to local journalists about the future of organized crime in Harlem. He spoke about modernization and efficiency. He used words like professionalization and systematic approach. He contrasted his operation, clean, organized, data-driven, with what he carefully didn't name but clearly referenced, the older, more traditional approaches that relied on personality rather than systems. He was building a narrative. The narrative was, Vincent Marshall represents the future. The old guard represents the past. In 5 years, everyone will be running operations like Vincent's. In 10 years, the old school operators will be fossils. One of those journalists was connected to people who spoke to Bumpy. Bumpy read Vincent's quotes in a magazine in late 1954, sitting in his office above a restaurant on 135th Street. That was when Bumpy started paying attention. Not with anger. With curiosity. He lit a cigar and asked a simple question to the man standing across from him: "Tell me everything about this Vincent Marshall." Here's what most people don't understand about Bumpy Johnson: he was patient in a way that most powerful people aren't. He didn't need to respond immediately to threats because he saw challenges differently than other men. A challenge wasn't something to crush. It was information. When Bumpy learned about Vincent, he didn't move against him. Instead, he assigned someone to watch. That someone was a man named Julius, one of Bumpy's oldest associates. Julius was in his 60s, moved slowly, seemed unimportant. Nobody paid attention to Julius. Which was exactly why he was perfect for surveillance. For 3 months, Julius tracked Vincent's movements. He noted which restaurants Vincent ate at, which banks Vincent used, which bars Vincent frequented. He didn't intercept anything. He didn't confront anyone. He simply observed and reported back every Sunday evening. What Julius discovered was interesting: Vincent was smart, cautious, and surprisingly disciplined. He didn't flaunt his money. He didn't carry weapons. He paid his debts on time. He had a girlfriend, a teacher like his mother, and he was relatively faithful. He attended church sometimes, not always, but regularly enough that Julius noted it in his report. Vincent, in other words, was the kind of young criminal that actually had a future outside crime if he chose it. He was someone with options, not desperation. Bumpy considered this information carefully. A man with options was more predictable than a man without them. A man with options would make rational calculations. He would assume he could negotiate his way out if things went wrong. He would believe in the possibility of winning. Then something else happened that accelerated Bumpy's attention. One of Vincent's runners, a young man named Tommy, got caught by the police with a collection bag containing $2,100. Tommy could have snitched. In the old days, many runners would. But Tommy didn't. He took the fall, accepted a 6-month sentence, and kept quiet. When he got out, Vincent was waiting for him with money and a job. This detail interested Bumpy enormously. Because loyalty that strong, earned by fairness rather than fear, was rare. It was the kind of loyalty that could actually be dangerous if directed at the wrong person. By early 1955, 6 months into Vincent's operation, Bumpy had made a decision: he would let Vincent continue building. He wouldn't stop him. He wouldn't warn him. He wouldn't pressure his runners to stay. He would simply watch and learn what Vincent was truly capable of. Bumpy gave Julius new instructions: I want to know his suppliers. All of them. And I want to know how he's connected to them. This decision would prove to be one of the most instructive moments in Bumpy's life. Because what he was about to learn would confirm something he'd always believed: intelligence without understanding is just confidence wearing a disguise. By late 1955, Vincent had expanded again. His third territory was even more ambitious: 115th to 125th, the very core of Bumpy's operational heart. This wasn't peripheral territory anymore. This was the central nervous system. And remarkably, Vincent's operation worked there too. His runners were better paid. His system was more efficient. His locations stayed cleaner. Customers preferred his setup. Collections increased by 40% in some areas. Money flowed toward Vincent instead of toward Bumpy's lieutenants. This was when Vincent made his final mistake. He believed his success was due to his intelligence. He didn't consider that he might be succeeding because Bumpy was letting him. Vincent started attending community meetings. He started speaking about progressive approaches to business. He attracted younger hustlers and entrepreneurs who saw him as the future. He began building something that looked less like a criminal operation and more like a legitimate business movement called the Harlem Modernization Initiative. He was, in effect, declaring that the age of Bumpy Johnson was ending. One of the younger hustlers Vincent attracted was a man named Marcus. Marcus had worked for one of Bumpy's lieutenants, but he switched to Vincent because Vincent offered better pay, clearer advancement, and what seemed like a meritocratic system. Marcus brought information with him, not intentionally, just through proximity to Vincent's growing ambition. In January 1956, Marcus attended a meeting where Vincent outlined his 5-year plan. In 5 years, Vincent said, his operation would handle more action than any single operator in Harlem except Bumpy himself. In 10 years, Vincent might challenge Bumpy directly. In 15 years, Vincent might replace him entirely. It was all calculated. It was all inevitable, Vincent believed. Marcus reported this to a friend, who reported it to someone else, and eventually it reached Bumpy. This was the moment that changed everything. Bumpy didn't respond with violence. He didn't send warnings. He didn't confront Vincent on the street or in public. He simply sent a message through a courier: Vincent should visit a private room above a restaurant on 133rd Street. Tuesday evening. 8 o'clock. No explanation. No context. Vincent arrived early, nervous but confident. He'd never met Bumpy privately before. He imagined this might be a negotiation, a division of territory, perhaps, or a formal recognition of Vincent's independence. Maybe Bumpy was aging and wanted to hand off some responsibility. The room was small, intimate, with a table and 2 chairs. A lamp in the corner. A window looking out on 133rd Street. Bumpy was already there, sitting calmly, smoking a cigar. He didn't stand. He didn't offer his hand. He just gestured to the empty chair. Vincent sat down. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Bumpy smoked. Vincent waited, his heart racing, trying to read the situation. He'd prepared for negotiations. He'd prepared for confrontation. He hadn't prepared for silence. Finally, Bumpy asked a question. Not an accusation. Not a threat. A genuine question. Vincent, who supplies your runners? Vincent blinked. The question was so specific, so technical, that it caught him off guard. He answered, I have 3 main suppliers. Paul handles narcotics. Frank handles policy slips and materials. Marcus handles collection bags and logistical support. Bumpy nodded slowly. Anyone else? Bumpy asked. Vincent considered. Smaller suppliers for specific needs. Banking connections, police contacts, that sort of thing. But those 3 handle 95% of operations. Bumpy took a long drag on his cigar. Smoke drifted toward the window. Tell me about Paul, Bumpy said. Vincent started talking. Paul was reliable, trustworthy, had been supplying Vincent since the beginning. Paul had connections to the larger import network. Paul understood the business. Paul was. Does Paul still drive a midnight blue Cadillac? Bumpy interrupted. Vincent's chest tightened. How did Bumpy know that? Yes, Vincent said carefully. License plate ending in 47? Bumpy continued. I'm not sure, Vincent said. Bumpy smiled without warmth. It does. I've had someone watching Paul for 6 months. Do you know why? Vincent said nothing. He couldn't speak. Because Paul works for me, Bumpy said calmly. He supplies you using my connections, at my prices, with my approval. He reports to me every week. Every single week, Paul tells me how much money you've made, where you're expanding, what your plans are. He's been doing it since you first approached him. Vincent felt something in his chest collapse entirely. But he didn't interrupt. Bumpy continued, tell me about Frank. Same answer. Same realization. Frank also worked for Bumpy. Frank had been placed with Vincent to monitor his operation from the inside. Then Marcus. Then the 3 smaller suppliers. As Bumpy listed each one, Vincent understood the architecture of his own imprisonment. Every single person he thought worked for him was actually reporting to Bumpy. Every supply chain he thought he'd built independently was actually Bumpy's supply chain, extended as a test. Every connection he thought was his was actually Bumpy's. Vincent's entire operation was a Bumpy operation he didn't know he was operating. He was running a ghost company owned by someone else. When the list was complete, Bumpy leaned back in his chair. He took another drag on his cigar. You know what interests me about you, Vincent? Bumpy asked. Vincent shook his head, unable to speak. His throat felt dry. You're smart. Really smart. You studied systems. You understood inefficiency. You built something better than what already existed. In some ways, you're smarter than I was at your age. You're smarter than most men I know. Bumpy paused. But you made a mistake. You thought intelligence was the same as power. You thought if you could build a better system, the world would recognize it and reward it. You thought meritocracy was possible. You believed that the strongest idea would win, and all you had to do was prove your idea was stronger. Bumpy leaned forward. You believed your own story. That's the mistake. Vincent finally spoke. His voice cracked. So it was all, you were testing me? I was observing you, Bumpy corrected. I wanted to understand what you would do when you thought you had independence. I wanted to see how far you would go. I wanted to know what you would become when you believed you were becoming something. And most importantly, I wanted to know if you would eventually challenge me directly. He took another drag. And you know what I learned? I learned that you're exactly what I thought you were, smart, ambitious, and completely dependent on a system you don't understand. The moment you thought you were winning, you were actually just playing a game where I knew the rules and you didn't. More than that, you didn't even know there was a game being played. Bumpy didn't make threats. He didn't need to. The facts were sufficient. They hung in the room like smoke. "Here's your choice, Vincent," Bumpy said. "You can continue operating your territory. But it will be my territory, supplied by my people, with my permission, and you will acknowledge that. You'll work directly for me instead of thinking you're independent. You'll receive a salary of $500 a week and a percentage of profits. Or..." Bumpy paused. "You can try to walk away. Try to build your operation elsewhere, without my suppliers, without my connections. See how far you get. My people will stop dealing with you immediately. Every connection you've made will evaporate. And the Italians, when they hear you're unprotected, will take an interest. They'll want to either use you or eliminate you." Vincent understood the second option was actually no option at all. "Or," Bumpy continued, "you can leave Harlem entirely. Take what you've earned, disappear quietly, become something legitimate somewhere else. I won't stop you. But I won't help you either. And my people won't work with you. And the question of what happens after you leave isn't something I can control." Bumpy stood up, signaling the meeting was ending. "You have 24 hours to decide. But understand something, Vincent. I let you build this because I wanted to see what you were capable of. And you're capable. You could be very valuable working with me. But you were never independent. You were never running your own operation. You were always in my operation. You were just the only one who didn't know it." Vincent left that room understanding something fundamental about power that no book had ever taught him. Power isn't what you build. Power is the system that allows you to build. And if you don't control the system, you don't control anything. Bumpy hadn't simply outmaneuvered Vincent through intelligence. He'd outmaneuvered him through patience, through allowing Vincent to reveal himself, through letting Vincent build the very structure that would become his prison. Bumpy had turned Vincent's strengths into his weaknesses. The lesson was this: the most dangerous power isn't visible. It's invisible. It's the power that lets you think you're free while you're actually completely dependent. It's the power that watches you succeed and lets you believe it's because of your merit when actually it's because you're being allowed to succeed. Vincent chose to stay. He accepted a position as one of Bumpy's territory managers, still operating the system he'd built, but now openly under Bumpy's authority. He made good money. He gained experience. He learned how systems actually worked by working within a system that was already mature. 5 years later, when Vincent had absorbed everything Bumpy had to teach him, Bumpy offered him a new territory, larger, more profitable, and more exposed. This time, Vincent understood what he truly was: not an independent boss, but a capable operator inside a much larger system. Paradoxically, that awareness made him far more effective. He stopped resisting the structure and began working within it. Vincent's story reveals a fundamental truth about power in complex systems. Intelligence alone is not power. Access to intelligence is power. The ability to see what others cannot, to shape the conditions under which they succeed, and to let them believe they are free, this is power. Bumpy did not defeat Vincent with violence or force. He defeated him through information architecture. Bumpy had built a network so complete that anyone operating in Harlem was already inside his system, whether they knew it or not. The network was invisible, but it was total. The question that haunted Vincent was simple: how long had Bumpy known? The answer was from the beginning. Bumpy knew the moment Vincent first entered the supply chain. He knew who Vincent was before Vincent understood who Bumpy truly was. He had been watching since day one. Vincent was intelligent. He could optimize processes, identify inefficiencies, and build better structures. But Bumpy understood power. He understood that visibility is a tool and invisibility a weapon. That patience compounds power more reliably than aggression. That the system matters more than any individual inside it. Vincent eventually became genuinely successful, but always within Bumpy's framework, using Bumpy's networks, protecting Bumpy's interests. His greatest achievements came only after he understood his dependents. This is often told as a story about hierarchy. That misses the point. The real lesson is that mature power does not announce itself. It becomes so integrated into the system that resisting it feels like resisting gravity. Bumpy didn't rule Harlem through force alone. He ruled it through structure, through networks, information flows, and control of the conditions under which others could operate. That is how real power works. Not through threats, but through understanding. Not through competition, but through integration.